So, Five Nights at Freddy's has always been my favorite indie horror game series. The game itself was a fun, not fun, but premise and original idea that actually looked pretty appealing. The color, not like the colors, but the creepy atmosphere. And a creepy atmosphere is incredibly creepy. The creepy ambience it had to it. It was all really creepy in a game that felt like it was under an original idea that took over the YouTube scene. A game made by a creator called a guy named Scott Coffin, who was always getting bullied for making games after failing years of being a game designer. Then but over the years, indie horror games have done a specific direction that are targeted towards children. That these games do. They are all specifically targeted towards children, which are made to many issues, leading to many issues coming from the indie horror games that I see complaints about. Now, let's see. What really happened to become FNAF as popular as it was that people think? Yes, let's place. A lot of people think, I think, if Markiplier had not played Five Nights at Freddy's, then the FNAF would probably have not gotten the popularity that it was. And Five Nights at Freddy's finally just got the clue that just because your favorite YouTuber gets an over-exaggerated reaction from a jump scare means that it can grow up to 107 million views, which just grew into an essentially popular game that just kept growing and growing, especially with all over. But unfortunately, when FNAF 3 rolled around, we've got look at all this marketability. But FNAF shortly after turned to a big marketed direction in 2015. Look at all this. Look at all this. Which proves that this game was definitely found ways to be marketable. And with many people saying, especially my saying, of how marketable this game is with the plushes and action figures, a game with such a disturbing story could become so marketable? Well, in this case, yes, it can be. It can be marketable, even though probably not. Now, a lot of people, especially like me, a lot of people, I think the main reason why fans are so interested in FNAF anyway is just because the gameplay. FNAF are more interested in the interesting story of it more than the gameplay itself. And honestly, but I still care about the story and the gameplay. I care about the gameplay. I think it's interesting gameplay. It's nice gameplay. But what they do more focus on is the story and William Afton trying to solve the entirities of William Afton. And honestly, so what began FNAF to go downhill? But up to FNAF 4, things were going really good until you guessed it, FNAF World. A game, yes. I don't think that FNAF World is as awful as many people say. Update 1 was kind of buggy and glitchy, but in Update 2, they fixed a lot of problems, and all the secrets in it are pretty interesting too. They're not as dumb. Not as dumb, and has some interesting secrets to find in the game that kept me playing back in 2021. But honestly, it's not a mainline FNAF experience. It's not. What are you talking about? Come on, man. What did I need to play this? It's not a mainline FNAF experience. So overall, it's just not that bad. But it's not as awful as people say. But it's just not exactly a good game. And Daco, who was a FNAF YouTuber, actually interviewed Scott Coffin about FNAF World. And what he said was that he said that he learned a valuable lesson, that he will try to never do something like this again. That he learned a very valuable lesson. He said it was his least valuable game that he has ever made. And said that he will try to never do something like this again. But unfortunately, Scott, you have done it again. Wait a second. You didn't do that. It's Steelwall. Yep, you guessed it. Five Nights at Freddy's Security Breach. Now, what I did want to tell you about this game is, let's get into the atmosphere of it. The original FNAF games were presented as you were in a pizzeria. And at night, you were a night guard. And the atmosphere was creepy. Everything was creepy as it could be as possible. Everything was creepy. It was creepy ambience in every single FNAF game presented. But Security Breach, it's definitely a marketability. It's just so marketable in any way that honestly, security breach is just so marketable. So where does security breach is setting? In a giant mega pizzaplex. And honestly, if you're comparing this to the other FNAF games, this is the location for the other FNAF games. The security breach setting is a lot more different than that. All right, let's go look at the setting for FNAF 1. Look at the setting for this game. Look, the setting is small, okay? It is definitely small. Look at the setting. It is a good enough. It is a small setting and it makes it a little bit harder for the animatronics to get to you. So look at that. And its settings seem to work fit in reality, even though like its concept can never be thought in real life. The animatronics getting you. It felt its setting could be thought in real life and grounded in reality. And even FNAF 2, which has a good amount of set, that's also still grounded in reality. Obviously, still grounded in reality. And it's a good enough pizza play. There's a good enough thing, and the rest do that too. And maybe the primary control module from Sister Location might be that way, but not exactly, because let's face it, Sister Location, the primary control module, might be grounded in reality, but not really. Sister Location did not feel so grounded in reality. Its technology just felt so high tech and all that, but it was not exactly a bad game. But it had but it was not that crazy big of a setting. Okay, what's our setting for security breach? A giant mega pizzaplex. Okay, let's get into the setting of the game. The setting of the game is huge, okay? It's huge. It's just so huge if you're comparing it to the other games. Its setting does not fit with the other games, and in many reasons. In scariness quality, we all know that this game just does not fit. Its place is... And honestly, does security breach even fit with the other games? No, it does not fit with the other games because it's their design. Let's get into the animatronic designs. Look how marketable these animatronic designs look. They look so marketable compared to the other animatronic characters that you've seen in the other games. They are so marketable and are so colorful visuals in this game. They are so colorful. Not only are they colorful and visual, it's so buggy and glitchy. You know, I've actually did a video gameplay on it yesterday. Security breach. It was so laggy. It was laggy. When I play the other FNAF games, I don't experience that much of a lag. Most of the time, if I experience a lag on a FNAF game, it's probably my computer, not the game itself. But Security Breach, it's laggy all the time. It's such a laggy game with broken glitches and bug glitches that just does not deserve what the original FNAF games did. It is definitely marketed towards children. That is a big marketing aspect. Which means that Security Breach is one of those games that's marketed, indie horror games that's marketed towards children. Then there's Hello Neighbor. Where do I start with you, Hello Neighbor? Probably one of the first games to ever try to follow FNAF in their footsteps. Now, what did this game offer? Well, when Alpha 1 came out, it was a really well direction for the game. It had a really well direction and a good premise for it. It's a fun and unique, simple premise, but let's get into the game. After Alpha 1, but when the official version came out, they kept releasing demos. They kept releasing just so many versions of game-breaking bugs and glitches in a game that was just fundamentally broken. All the games itself is just so fundamentally broken. It just kept doing it, which is why I don't like Hello Neighbor. It's so fundamentally broken. How many versions they had to release to fix all the bugs and glitches to this thing just doesn't make sense of how this would take over the YouTube scene, possibly. And especially how it follows FNAF's footsteps. Look at these. Oh yeah, we got books. We got Hello Neighbor McFarlane sets, which they created the FNAF McFarlane sets. Which, honestly, then they have the FNAF sets. They did it. So honestly, you can already say that this was meant to be. So you can already tell that they were trying to follow in FNAF's footsteps with the construction sets and books. Which, by the way, they have like the FNAF books, like the Silver Eyes and like that. So anyway, Hello Neighbor is just fundamentally broken. Not a good indie horror game. Then we got Bendy and the Ink Machine. Now, I've played this in the past. I've played this game. I played it back in 2018 and I beat all 5 chapters to the game. But after that, I just never, I played it sometimes. I just visited the extras. The last place, I don't remember what it's called. I just visited that and I never played the game again. Honestly, I don't really know. I sometimes I played chapter 5 and redone it again, but I've never played any other chapter. Honestly, Bendy and the Ink Machine has some interesting lore, but honestly, it's been a while since I've actually played this game, honestly. It's been just so long since I've played this. It's been a while since I've actually even touched the game. If you even look at it, I'll show you a video that I just put on PowerPoint myself. About a video about how Bendy and the Ink Machine is just sitting there, never to be seen again. Yeah, and look the heck where Bendy and the Ink Machine is, and look how latest I've played all these games. Alright, you got this, you got, of course, the FNAF games all over here because I play them a lot. Got all this, got Grandpa, Witch It, Granny, which I haven't played in a while, honestly. FNAF World, I don't know how the heck that's there. And now I have Boars in the Dark Survival, a game that I don't even play, honestly. And there's Project Playtime. I've never played that, which we'll get into later. Then there's Bendy and the Ink Machine. Have I honestly even played this? No, I haven't. Probably because I played it, my dad actually got it on his computer. Actually no, a computer that's actually hooked up to a TV. It's like a kind of a desktop set kinda, and he got it on Steam, so he still has it. And no matter what, it was always played by me. I was the only one who played it. And what did I resolve? I never even, and after that, I never played it again, honestly. It's just not that interesting. It's and it did have some, but it did have some, along with the interesting lore, I just didn't find the entire story to be just exactly one spectacular masterpiece. Well, it was more. I've only, like it says, I played it May 14th, which is time I actually play this. Why? Because I wanted to play this because of Poppy, but we'll get into that later. So again, Bendy's just sitting at the bottom of the library. So after chapter 5, after when you complete the game, that's really it. All you really have to do after and also another thing is that there is no sequels until I don't know, but we'll get back right now. So get back to the rest of the presentation of my real video. Alright, yes, now we're back. So Bendy Dark Revival released in 2022, November 15th. Now, when did Bendy and the Ink Machine release? Somewhere in 2017. Now, don't get me wrong. Bendy and the Ink Machine was really big back in 2018 and 17. But because I think that the creator, Joey Drew Studios, just wanted to make another sequel because Bendy was really not being cared about all that much recently. Up until Bendy Dark Revival, which I have not actually played. I'm starting to wonder if I might actually play it. I'm not really sure. But of course it's an indie horror game. I'm not that excited, but I can still play games even though they're bad. These indie horror games aren't exactly bad. They're just more so marketable and not that scary. Not exactly like the worst. Then you got Bendy that just doesn't, then they decided to make a sequel because nobody cares about the first one. Nobody cares about Bendy anymore because they didn't release a lot of games. But right now, you can already tell that Bendy the Dark Revival, and especially it's like any other horror game in general. Bendy and the Dark Revival, I'm not really sure about any Dark Revival, but Bendy and the Ink Machine had many game-breaking glitches. That they result in game-breaking glitches, like usual. So unusual. In general, it's literally the same. They've evolved in game-breaking glitches. It's the same thing over and over again. You gotta tell it, it's the same thing. Game-breaking glitches. It's just completely normal. You have to acknowledge that it's completely normal. Okay, it's normal. And now we're going to get to our next biggest offender, Poppy Playtime. Now, this game was essentially a big horror game that started off in 2021 and 2022, being probably one of the most popular horror games of 2021 and 2022, even more popular than Security Breach. Now, what I did want to tell you is that people were so concerned about this game for kids. And people were, now let's get into the thing. people were on edge about their kids watching and pretending to be Huggy Wuggy at the playground, all that stuff. I don't know if you've heard about it, but I've heard about it for sure. It's possible that these things are meant, is that, here's the thing, is that when you market a horror game towards kids, that's supposed to be scary. Not supposed to, but because a horror game is supposed to be scary, right? And you market it towards children, then you give little Timmy the iPad, and then they watch something, and then it's Huggy Wuggy. You put them on YouTube, not YouTube Kids, and then you blame society for it. Yes, it's a normal thing. That's what they're doing. Well, that's why you obviously, and now especially on YouTube Kids, the Happy Playtime can slip through the parental controls. They're still on YouTube Kids, and they still find it. Because it's marketed towards children like usual, and that is probably the main issue that people complain about. Parents don't want, that's not a good idea to market horror games towards children. But there are obviously things is that but really they make it I honestly think that they make it marketable towards children is because they need merch. There's merchandise, they need plushies. And honestly, they should the Poppy Playtime merch. They should make statues and stuff like that, like the FNAF statues that they're making from Funko. They're making those. Definitely for sure they're making those. And I actually bought the Lefty statue too, but I didn't. Honestly, I definitely will say, actually, I love this game. In conclusion, Security Breach and Hello Neighbor. So if the parents are watching, Security Breach, Poppy Playtime is anything like FNAF Security Breach and Hello Neighbor. Possibly, yeah. It's like those. And there's Poppy Playtime Chapter 2, which released in May 2022, and there's no sign of there's no sign of Poppy Playtime Chapter 3 coming out. Then with Project Playtime, then that was the game that's actually like really different from the other games. That might actually count. See, Poppy Playtime seems so uninspired. If you're comparing it to the other games, it's so uninspired because it was inspired by FNAF. Let me guess. So uninspired that it's actually sad. Now, it's like an abandoned factory. It just uses the elements of so many other indie horror games that we've already seen. So, no wonder why I don't like it. It's just so unoriginal and not really that good of a thing. It's just so uninspired, like most indie horror games these days. And for most parents that don't know, like this is a real thing. In Five Nights at Freddy's, a man named William Afton was luring children into the back room and killing them gruesomely, and then shoving the bodies into the animatronic suits, and then come back to haunt him, and then there's Remnant, yeah, but I'm not going to explain all that. So in conclusion, these indie horror games, everything that these indie horror games do is dictated almost entirely by you. So even if you have zero marketing budget, if a bunch of hotshot YouTubers play your game, that's huge. But honestly, yeah, that's kind of it. So, and the reason indie horror games are becoming like this is because welcome. All right, I don't know what that was. All right, guys. I don't know what that was for a second. Okay. What happened? Okay. So let's do that again. So the reason indie horror games are becoming like this is because scaring a kid is probably the most easiest thing in the world. Just put anything that's considered creepy on the screen, and then they'll literally freak out to death. How easy it is to scare children. Exactly. Now, exactly. Poppy Playtime. It uses the elements of so many other indie horror games. Especially, it was not a game that just ruined everything. It was a game that just was almost dictated entirely by YouTubers. The Poppy Playtime, it's unoriginal. these games. They're just not that. They're just so unoriginal. They're just not original. These games just don't seem all that original. So they're not original. Probably Playtime had these games just get inspired by FNAF. Even though some have interesting ideas, they're mostly adapted. They're just like mostly like animatronic mascots that are basically in FNAF. And literally the entire premise of them is that you're someone who breaks into a place and then regret it when spooky monsters chase you. That's what FNAF is. Honestly, that's how they got Poppy Playtime. Honestly, does Poppy Playtime should be popular? No. It's a game that just uses the elements of so many other indie horror games that we've seen. And honestly, it's sad to see that game studios, game companies decide to get an idea that was originally an original idea from Scott Coffin of Five Nights at Freddy's that looked appealing, and then that idea was used by other companies and kept making animatronic mascots off it. It's sad that they see that these companies had to do that, and then they're trying to do what FNAF did, and even like that, these days that these game developers, indie horror game developers, they're not only that they're forcing YouTubers to play the game. For example, TinyBuild is forcing Matt Patton from Game Theory to play Hello Neighbors. Like, Matt Patton, you should do this. Matt Patton, you should do this. It's like, just leave him alone. And I know
so many Maddens.
He does.
Madden 17,
yeah,
Madden 20.
Like FNAF, honestly, FNAF. And FNAF, he's done a lot of FNAF videos in the past. I've watched some of them, not all of them, but I definitely will watch some of them to get more on the story of the game by Game Theory, honestly. Which is proving that these indie horror games are actually forcing YouTubers to actually play their games and are requesting them to do it on purpose. Or they wanted to do it. And that their main objective for popularity, that they know it from FNAF, is to just let YouTubers play their games and wait for the popularity to start coming in. They'll start rolling out plushies. And honestly, if they released more like statues and stuff like that, I'd rather buy more of those than like beanbag plushies. The plushies that they buy, because those are more young. And especially the direction of FNAF in the past was like
the
mid-teen.
are usually
The original FNAF games were originally targeted towards mid-teen through young adult. Was the original direction for FNAF. But the direction that Security Breach took is like 8 years old. It's like an 8-year-old game. It's just such an 8-year-old and childish game. If you're comparing it to FNAF, those games, so if you don't actually know, I don't actually know that, honestly, I don't know. I also said before that I don't know how these games, I don't know. Honestly, if we want to stop making, if the game studios, if they stop making bad indie horror games, then we might actually have it that if the game developers stop making bad indie horror games, or at least stopping that, the issue is that the YouTubers, they keep playing their game. And I don't know. So anyway, I'll see you in the next video, but I'll talk about this later. And I'll see you in the next video, and I'm sad to see that I had to do this. Bye.